You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up.
Since the dawn of humanity, the whole of human civilization has been obsessed with the mystery of death. Science and religion have given us many explanations surrounding death and the afterlife. But the question still remains mostly unanswered. What happens to us when we die? Do we pass on to a different realm altogether with our consciousness still intact? Or do we simply cease to exist in body, mind and soul? What does one experience at the moment of death? In today's story, we'll explore some of these questions and try to find out what we know now, 300,000 years after the first Homo sapiens walked the earth. Death is defined as the point at which the heart no longer beats and blood flow to the brain is cut off. Technically, it's all based on the moment when the heart stops. That's how you get the time of death. Once that happens, blood no longer circulates to the brain, which means the brain function halts almost instantaneously. However, there is evidence to suggest that there is a burst of brain energy as someone dies. In 2013, researchers at the University of Michigan looked at the electrical signals inside the brains of 9 anesthetized rats having an induced heart attack. They saw activity patterns which are linked to a hyper-alerted state in the brief period after clinical death. The claim was made by Dr. Sam Pania, Director of Critical Care and Resuscitation Research at NYU Langone School of Medicine in New York City. He and his team are looking at people who have suffered cardiac arrest, technically died, but were later revived. It's the largest study of its type ever carried out. Some of those studies say they had awareness of full conversations and were seeing things that were going around them even after they were pronounced dead. In the clinical phase of death, some people are brought back from it. The breathing stops and people have out-of-body experiences and visions of landscapes or a light at the end of a tunnel. Some claim to go to a supernatural realm and meet their past-on relatives. Michael Shermer, an American science writer and historian of science and founder of the Skeptic Society, says that it's important to remember that these are near-death experiences. You're not actually dead. There's a luminal transitional stage there where you're sliding into some other state of consciousness, an altered state of it. So one theory about near-death experiences is that this is a way of transitioning from living to dead without feeling anxious, falling apart and upset and depressed. It's a smooth, feel-good, better than a morphine drip way of making the transition. There are many accounts of people having similar near-death experiences which are like, I saw a tunnel, a white light at the end of a tunnel. I felt myself floating out of the seat. Scientists now know exactly what it is. The blood is being compressed, including the center of the brain, and the last thing to go is the brainstem that keeps you alive. So the cortex is shutting down from the outside, and that would create this kind of tunneling effect on the back of your skull where your visual cortex is. Open brain surgeries on epileptic patients, where they cut the brain open and poke around to see where the seizures are starting so they could zap those neurons instead of some big crude attack. Open brain surgeries on epileptic patients, where they cut the brain open and poke around to see where the seizures are starting so they could zap those neurons instead of some big crude attack. What they are doing is that they take permission from the patients to wake them up, so they tap around with electrodes in their brain. There is no one way to map what the brain is doing. When patients are asked to report their visions, they say things like, oh, I just had a vision of my 10th birthday, or oh, I walked down my old neighborhood. And that's how they know where the seizures are stored. So we know now for sure that the near-death experiences are in the brain, the experiences that people report as real. After all, we know that these experiences are neurologically based. The debate is that is it strictly in our head and that we are not actually going anywhere, or does it open some door to some other dimension? The limitations of scientific experiments is that we're dealing with consciousness and memories and dreams.